The morning air bit at Hannah Mitchell's cheeks as she hurried down the busy sidewalk, her worn leather boots splashing through puddles left by the night's rain. She checked her watch, 7:45 a.m. 15 minutes to make it to Vertex Innovations, where she'd been working as an administrative assistant for the past 8 months. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and provided health insurance for her 10-year-old son, Tyler. "Excuse me," she mumbled as she sidestepped a group of tourists gawking at the city skyline. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Tyler's babysitter, Mrs. Patel, was running late again. Hannah's heart sank. She had a department meeting at 8:30 sharp, and her boss, Richard Morrow, had already warned her twice about tardiness. Single parenthood was a constant balancing act, and lately it felt like she was performing without a safety net. Hannah turned the corner onto Maple Street, picking up her pace. That's when she heard it, a sharp screech of tires, followed by a dull thud and a groan. 20 yards ahead, a man lay crumpled on the sidewalk, his expensive-looking briefcase spilled open beside him. The culprit, a delivery bike, sped away without stopping, the rider looking back with panic on his face. For a split second, Hannah hesitated, glancing at her watch again. 7:48 a.m. She bit her lip, looking from the injured man to the direction of her office building, visible just 3 blocks away. "Sir? Are you all right?" Hannah knelt beside the man, who was trying to sit up, his face contorted in pain. He was in his early 40s, with salt and pepper hair and a tailored charcoal suit now smeared with dirt, and what looked like coffee from a spilled travel mug. "I'm fine," he winced, attempting to stand before falling back with a sharp intake of breath. "My ankle." Hannah noticed how his right foot twisted at an unnatural angle. "You need medical attention. I'm calling an ambulance." "No ambulance," the man insisted, his voice strained but authoritative. "I have a meeting I can't miss." Hannah almost laughed at the irony. "With respect, sir, you can't even stand." The man's piercing blue eyes met hers. "I'll manage." He tried again to rise, only to collapse against the brick wall behind him, his face now pale beneath his light tan. "Look, I'm already late for work myself, but I can't leave you like this," Hannah said, dialing 911 despite his protests. After explaining the situation to the dispatcher, she helped gather the scattered papers from his briefcase. The letterhead caught her eye. "Benjamin Crawford, Chief Executive Officer, Vertex Innovations." Her heart stuttered. It couldn't be. "You work at Vertex?" she asked, her voice suddenly dry. The man, Benjamin Crawford, nodded, grimacing as he shifted position. "I do." Hannah swallowed hard. She'd never met the CEO in person. He worked on the top floor and rarely interacted with lower-level employees. In the company directory photo, he had been clean-shaven with shorter hair. This man looked more rugged, with a light stubble and slightly longer hair, but the eyes were unmistakable. "I work there too," she said quietly. "Administrative assistant in marketing." Something flickered across his face. Recognition, perhaps, or simply pain. "What's your name?" "Hannah Mitchell." Before he could respond, the ambulance arrived, its siren cutting through the morning bustle. The paramedics efficiently assessed Benjamin's injury, confirming Hannah's suspicion of a broken ankle. As they prepared to load him into the ambulance, he grabbed Hannah's wrist. "Thank you," he said. "Most people would have walked by." Hannah nodded, acutely aware that it was now 8:10 a.m. Her department meeting was in 20 minutes, and Richard Morrow was notorious for his intolerance of excuses. "I hope you feel better soon, Mr. Crawford." "Ben," he corrected, then winced as the paramedics lifted the stretcher. Would you mind coming with me? Just until they get me settled. I hate hospitals." Hannah hesitated. This request would certainly cost her her job. But the vulnerability in the CEO's eyes, so at odds with the powerful executive she'd imagined him to be, tugged at her. Plus, how could she say no to the man who ultimately signed her paychecks? "Okay," she said, climbing into the ambulance after him. She sent a quick text to her co-worker, Diane, asking her to tell Richard she'd be late due to an emergency. At the hospital, things moved quickly. Ben was taken for x-rays, while Hannah sat in the waiting room, nervously checking her phone. 8:45 a.m. Her meeting had started 15 minutes ago, and Diane had responded with a grim emoji. Richard was furious. By 9:30 a.m., Ben was diagnosed with a clean break that required a cast but no surgery. Hannah stayed, helping him fill out paperwork and contact his assistant. She learned he had been walking to work rather than taking his usual car service, wanting some fresh air before a stressful board meeting. "You should go," Ben said as the nurse finished putting on his cast. "So you've done more than enough," Hannah nodded, gathering her purse. "I hope your ankle heals quickly." "Hannah," Ben called as she reached the door. "Thank you, truly. Not many people would sacrifice their time for a stranger." She smiled, though anxiety churned in her stomach. It was the right thing to do. When Hannah finally arrived at Vertex at 10:15 a.m., Richard Morrow was waiting by her desk, arms crossed and face thunderous. Diane shot her a sympathetic look from across the office. "My office now," Richard barked, turning on his heel. Behind the closed door, Richard didn't bother with pleasantries. "This is the third time you've been late this month, Hannah." "I know, but there was an emergency." "There's always an emergency with you," he cut her off. "Single parents always have excuses. I run a department, not a charity." Hannah's cheeks burned with indignation. "That's not fair. I've never missed a deadline. Company policy states 3 tardies equals grounds for termination," Richard said coldly, sliding a paper across the desk. "I've already processed your severance. Clear out your desk by noon." Hannah stared at the termination notice, her vision blurring. How would she pay rent? Tyler's school fees? His asthma medication? As she packed her meager belongings into a cardboard box, a strange calm settled over her. She had helped someone in need, consequences be damned. If that cost her a job where her supervisor couldn't understand basic human decency, perhaps it wasn't the right place for her anyway. What Hannah couldn't know, as she rode the elevator down for the last time, was that Benjamin Crawford was about to arrive at Vertex Innovations in a wheelchair, his ankle freshly cast, with questions about the kind woman who had sacrificed her morning to help him, and with the power to change both their lives forever. As Hannah exited the Vertex Innovations building, the late morning sun momentarily blinded her. She shifted the cardboard box in her arms, containing 5 framed photos of Tyler, a small potted succulent, and a coffee mug with "World's Best Mom" painted in Tyler's wobbly handwriting. 8 months of employment reduced to a box she could barely fill. Her phone rang. It was Mrs. Patel. "Hannah, dear, is everything okay? You usually call when you get to work." Hannah swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'm actually not at work anymore, Mrs. Patel. I got fired." There was a pause on the other end. "Oh, my goodness. What happened?" Hannah explained briefly while navigating toward the bus stop. She couldn't afford a rideshare today, or maybe any day in the near future. "That's terrible," Mrs. Patel exclaimed. "For helping someone injured? Who does such a thing?" "Richard Morrow, apparently," Hannah sighed, setting her box on the bench at the bus stop. "Look, I'm going to start job hunting right away, but I might need to cut back on childcare hours until I find something." "Nonsense," Mrs. Patel replied firmly. "Tyler stays with me as usual until you're back on your feet. We'll work out the payment later." Tears welled in Hannah's eyes. "I can't ask you to—" "You didn't ask. I offered." "That's what neighbors do." Mrs. Patel's tone brooked no argument. "Now go home and rest today. Tomorrow you can fight the world again." Hannah thanked her and hung up, wiping away tears with the back of her hand. The kindness was overwhelming after Richard's coldness. As she boarded the bus, she couldn't help wondering what would happen to her small family now. The job market was tight, and Vertex had offered decent benefits. The thought of Tyler going without his medication made her stomach clench with anxiety. Back at her modest 2-bedroom apartment, Hannah set the box down on the kitchen counter and slumped onto a chair. She should be updating her resume, making calls to contacts, applying for unemployment benefits, but exhaustion washed over her in waves. Just 15 minutes of rest, she told herself, laying her head on her arms. She woke to the sound of her phone buzzing. Disoriented, she checked the time. 1:30 p.m. She had slept for over 2 hours. The number on her screen was unfamiliar. "Hello?" she answered groggily. "Is this Hannah Mitchell?" asked a crisp, professional female voice. "Yes, speaking." "This is Patricia Winters, Executive Assistant to Benjamin Crawford at Vertex Innovations. Mr. Crawford would like to speak with you. Are you available to come to the office tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Hannah sat up straight, fully awake now. "Mr. Crawford wants to see me. Why?" "He didn't share the specifics with me," Patricia replied, her tone warming slightly. "But he was quite insistent about arranging the meeting as soon as possible." Hannah's mind raced. Had Ben somehow learned about her termination? Was this about this morning's incident? Or perhaps Richard had said something disparaging, and now the CEO wanted to personally ensure she wouldn't cause trouble. "Ms. Mitchell, are you still there?" "Yes, sorry," Hannah stammered. "Tomorrow at 9 a.m. works fine." After hanging up, Hannah paced her small living room. This meeting could be good news or terrible news, and not knowing which was excruciating. She spent the rest of the afternoon polishing her resume anyway, just in case the meeting went poorly. By the time Tyler returned home from school and aftercare, Hannah had applied to 5 positions online, none as promising as her role at Vertex had been. "Mom, why are you home early?" Tyler's face lit up as he dropped his backpack by the door, rushing to hug her. At 10, he was all gangly limbs and boundless energy, his sandy brown hair perpetually in need of a trim. Hannah held him tight, burying her face in his hair. "I had an interesting day," she said carefully. "How about we order pizza tonight? Special occasion." Tyler pulled back. His hazel eyes, so like her own, narrowed suspiciously. "We only get pizza on Fridays or when something big happens. It's Tuesday." Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. "Well," Hannah said, guiding him to the couch, "something big did happen. I'm not working at Vertex anymore." Tyler's expression fell. "You got fired? Why? You're the best at everything?" The simple faith in his voice made her heart ache. "Thank you for the vote of confidence, buddy. It's complicated, but I helped someone who was hurt this morning, which made me late for work." "So my boss wasn't very understanding." Tyler frowned, processing this. "That's stupid. Helping people is more important than being on time." Hannah smiled despite everything. "I think so too. And don't say stupid, please." "Fine. That's illogical," Tyler amended, using one of his favorite vocabulary words from science class. "So what happens now?" "Now," Hannah said, reaching for her phone, "we order that pizza. And tomorrow I have a meeting with someone important, and then I'll be looking for a new job, but don't worry, everything's going to be okay." As she said it, she desperately hoped it was true. Tyler didn't need to know that their emergency fund would only last 6 weeks, or that his asthma medication would need to be refilled in just 18 days. He didn't need to know that the rent was due in 10 days, or that her student loans wouldn't wait just because she'd lost her income. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Hannah sat at her small kitchen table with a cup of tea, rehearsing what she might say to Benjamin Crawford tomorrow. Would he be formal? Sympathetic? Annoyed that she'd gotten involved in his accident? She had no idea what to expect, but one thing was certain. This meeting could change everything. What Hannah couldn't possibly imagine was just how right that thought would prove to be. Hannah arrived at Vertex Innovations headquarters 20 minutes early the next morning. She'd splurged on a rideshare, unwilling to risk being late for this mysterious meeting. The 40-story glass building seemed even more imposing now that she no longer belonged inside it. At the security desk, she hesitated. "I have an appointment with Benjamin Crawford at 9 a.m. My name is Hannah Mitchell. I don't have my employee badge anymore." The security guard Drew, whom she'd greeted every morning for 8 months, gave her a sympathetic look. "I heard what happened, Hannah. That Morrow guy's always been a piece of work." He typed something into his computer. "You're on the VIP list this morning. Take the executive elevator all the way to the top floor." The executive elevator. In her 8 months at Vertex, Hannah had never once ridden it. Regular employees used the bank of standard elevators, while the single brushed steel executive elevator whisked the company's leadership directly to the top floors. "Thank you, Drew," she said, clutching her purse tightly as she walked across the marble lobby. The executive elevator was as luxurious inside as out, wood-paneled walls, soft lighting, and completely silent as it ascended. Hannah's stomach fluttered with nerves. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a navy blue dress she saved for special occasions, paired with her only decent blazer and sensible heels. She wanted to look professional, not desperate, though she felt a healthy measure of both. The elevator opened directly into a sleek reception area. A striking woman with silver-streaked black hair looked up from behind a curved desk. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Patricia Winters. We spoke on the phone." Her handshake was firm, her smile reserved but not unfriendly. "Mr. Crawford is expecting you. May I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be nice, thank you," Hannah said, her throat suddenly dry. Patricia led her through a set of double doors into a spacious corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Benjamin Crawford sat behind a massive desk of polished walnut, his cast-encased foot propped on a cushioned stool. He looked up from his computer screen and smiled. Hannah Mitchell, please come in. Patricia quietly set a glass of water on a side table before withdrawing, closing the doors behind her. Thank you for coming, Ben said, gesturing to the chair across from him. How are you feeling after yesterday's excitement? Hannah sat carefully, smoothing her dress. I should be asking you that, Mr. Crawford. How's the ankle? Ben, please. He grimaced, looking down at his cast. 6 weeks in this contraption minimum. But it could have been worse if I'd tried to make it to the office on my own. His blue eyes fixed on hers. I understand you were terminated yesterday. Hannah's chest tightened. So he did know. Yes. Because you were late helping me. That was the official reason, Hannah admitted, though there were contributing factors. Ben leaned forward slightly. Such as? Hannah hesitated. Bad-mouthing her former supervisor to the CEO seemed unwise, even in these circumstances. I'm a single parent. My son Tyler is 10. Sometimes childcare issues make punctuality challenging. Mr. Morrow isn't particularly sympathetic to those situations. I see. Ben made a note on a pad beside him. Tell me about yourself, Hannah. How long have you been in administrative work? Was this a job interview? Hannah's confusion must have shown on her face because Ben smiled. Humor me. Over the next 20 minutes, Ben asked about her education, community college degree in business administration, her work history, mostly administrative roles with a brief stint in retail, and her long-term career goals, stable employment with growth potential in operations management. Hannah found herself speaking more candidly than she'd planned, drawn out by Ben's genuine interest and thoughtful questions. And what about Tyler? Ben asked, surprising her with the personal turn. Tyler is... Hannah smiled, her eyes softening. He's brilliant, science-obsessed, builds robots out of cardboard boxes. He wants to be an engineer or an astronaut, or both, depending on the day. Sounds like a remarkable kid, Ben said, and Hannah was struck by the genuine warmth in his voice. Does he have any health issues I should be aware of? The question caught Hannah off guard. He has asthma. It's usually well controlled with medication, but... She trailed off, wondering why she was sharing this with her former employer's CEO and why he would need to know. Ben nodded, making another note. I appreciate your candor, Hannah. Now, I've kept you in suspense long enough. He sat back, folding his hands on the desk. I owe you an apology and a debt of gratitude. Your assistance yesterday went far beyond what most would offer a stranger. Anyone would have helped, Hannah demurred. We both know that's not true, Ben countered gently. I watched at least 5 people walk past before you stopped. That says something about your character. Hannah shifted uncomfortably under his appraising gaze. I've looked into the circumstances of your termination, Ben continued. Richard Morrow exceeded his authority. Company policy allows for managerial discretion in cases of documented emergencies, which yours certainly was. His expression hardened slightly. Furthermore, his comments about single parents were inappropriate and contrary to our corporate values. Hope fluttered in Hannah's chest. Does that mean? I'd like to offer you a position, Ben said, but held up a hand as Hannah's face lit up. Not your old job. Something different. Different how? I need an executive assistant, Ben explained. Patricia is being promoted to operations director next month, a move that's been in the works for some time. The role would involve managing my schedule, coordinating with department heads, some travel arrangements, and generally keeping me organized. Hannah blinked rapidly, trying to process this. But I don't have experience as an executive assistant. You have administrative experience, people skills, and most importantly, sound judgment in a crisis, Ben countered. The rest can be learned. Patricia would train you thoroughly before her promotion takes effect. The salary, Hannah began tentatively, would be commensurate with the position's responsibilities, Ben assured her. Roughly double what you were making in marketing, plus improved benefits and greater schedule flexibility for those inevitable childcare emergencies. Hannah's mind reeled. Double her previous salary would transform her financial situation entirely. Tyler's medical needs, the rent, maybe even moving to a better school district, suddenly all seemed within reach. Why me? She asked finally, unable to contain her bewilderment. You must have dozens of qualified candidates within the company. Ben leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment. Do you know what I value most in my team, Hannah? It's not fancy degrees or technical brilliance, though those have their place. It's character, integrity, The courage to do the right thing, even when it's inconvenient or costly. He gestured to his ankle. Yesterday morning, you demonstrated those qualities in abundance. Hannah felt warmth rise to her cheeks. I appreciate your confidence, but there's more, Ben interrupted, his expression growing more serious. What I'm about to share isn't public knowledge yet. He pushed a folder across the desk. Vertex is launching a philanthropic initiative next quarter. The Vertex Foundation will focus on supporting single parents in the workforce through scholarships, childcare subsidies, and professional development programs. Hannah opened the folder to find preliminary marketing materials for the foundation, complete with mission statement and program outlines. I'd like you to serve as the foundation's liaison in addition to your executive assistant duties, Ben continued. Your personal experience would be invaluable in shaping programs that actually meet the needs of the families we aim to serve. The opportunity before her seemed almost too perfect. A substantial raise, meaningful work, flexibility for Tyler's needs, and a chance to help others facing the same challenges she'd encountered. Yet something nagged at her. This is incredibly generous, she said carefully. But I can't help wondering if this is... I don't know. Charity because you feel obligated after what happened. Ben's expression softened. It's not charity, Hannah. It's recognition of the qualities Vertex needs in its leadership team. The accident was unfortunate, but it revealed something valuable, someone valuable I might otherwise have overlooked. He smiled. Consider it a mutually beneficial arrangement. I get an exceptional assistant with unique insights, and you get a position that recognizes your worth. Hannah took a deep breath. When would I start? How's tomorrow? Ben asked with a slight grin. Patricia's eager to begin training, and I could use the help navigating the office with this. He tapped his cast. Tomorrow would be perfect, Hannah replied, a smile breaking across her face. Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you down. What Hannah couldn't know as she left Ben's office that morning was that this chance encounter would do more than change her career trajectory. It would eventually transform Vertex's corporate culture, impact hundreds of struggling families, and forge a connection between her and Benjamin Crawford that neither could have anticipated when they met on that rain-slicked sidewalk. 3 months into her new position as Benjamin Crawford's executive assistant, Hannah barely recognized her life. Her tiny apartment had been traded for a sun-filled 2-bedroom condo in a building with a doorman and a rooftop garden where Tyler could stargaze through his new telescope. Her daily commute now included a company car service, a necessity for the CEO's right hand, Ben had insisted, and her wardrobe had expanded to include tailored suits and designer shoes that Patricia had helped her select. "Mum, watch this," Tyler called from their kitchen island, where he was conducting an experiment with baking soda and vinegar. His science kit, a gift from Ben after Tyler aced his end-of-year exams, was spread across the granite countertop. Hannah smiled, setting down the Vertex Foundation proposal she'd been reviewing. "That's amazing, buddy. Just remember to clean up when you're finished." The foundation had become her passion project. Working alongside Ben, she'd helped shape programs that would provide real support to families like hers. Emergency childcare services, flexible work arrangements, mentorship opportunities. The initiative would launch officially next month, and Hannah would speak at the gala alongside Ben, sharing her story. Her phone chimed with a text from Ben. "Need your help with the Westridge proposal. Dinner meeting at Romano's, 7 p.m. Car will pick you up at 6:30. Mrs. Patel confirmed she can watch Tyler." Hannah had grown accustomed to these last-minute requests. Ben respected her boundaries as a parent, but the nature of his position sometimes required evening work. Mrs. Patel, now handsomely compensated as Tyler's official after-school caregiver, was always happy to extend her hours when needed. The transformation in Hannah's professional life had been remarkable. Under Patricia's tutelage, she'd quickly mastered the intricacies of corporate protocol, learned to anticipate Ben's needs, and built relationships with Vertex's senior leadership team. Richard Morrow had been quietly transferred to a subsidiary office in Omaha, a move Hannah suspected wasn't coincidental. What surprised her most, however, was the evolution of her relationship with Ben. What had begun as formal appreciation had developed into genuine friendship. They worked seamlessly together, often finishing each other's sentences in meetings. He valued her input on business decisions, and she admired his vision for the company. Tyler adored him, especially after Ben arranged a private tour of the local science museum's robotics exhibit. Rumors, of course, had circulated through Vertex's gossip channels, Some speculated that Hannah had somehow manipulated Ben during his moment of vulnerability. Others suggested a more romantic connection. Hannah ignored the whispers, focusing instead on proving her worth through impeccable work. At precisely 6:30 p.m., Hannah kissed Tyler goodbye and descended to the waiting town car. The driver, Marcus, greeted her warmly. "Evening, Miss Mitchell. We're picking up Mr. Crawford first this time." Hannah nodded, settling into the leather seat. She reviewed her notes on the Westridge proposal, a potential partnership with a major tech firm that would expand Vertex's market reach considerably. When the car pulled up to Ben's brownstone 15 minutes later, she was fully prepared for the evening's discussion. Ben emerged from his front door, leaning slightly on his cane. The cast had come off 2 weeks ago, but his physical therapist had recommended the cane for another month. Despite this concession to his injury, he cut an impressive figure in his charcoal suit and burgundy tie. "Sorry for the last-minute meeting," he said, sliding into the seat beside her. "Gerald Westridge only had tonight available before he leaves for Tokyo." "It's no problem," Hannah assured him, passing him the tablet with her annotated version of the proposal. "I've highlighted the sections that needed clarification and added the financial projections you requested." Ben scrolled through her notes, nodding appreciatively. "This is excellent work, Hannah. I don't know how I managed without you." "Probably with a lot more coffee and a lot less sleep," she quipped. He laughed, and Hannah felt a now familiar warmth spread through her chest. She'd become adept at ignoring these feelings over the past months. The quickening of her pulse when he smiled at her, the pleasant flutter when their hands accidentally touched while reviewing documents. Professional boundaries were essential, especially given their history and respective positions at Vertex. Romano's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, was Ben's preferred venue for important business discussions. The maitre d' immediately escorted them to a private dining room where Gerald Westridge, a silver-haired man in his 60s, waited with 2 younger associates. "Ben, good to see you back on your feet," Gerald greeted, rising to shake hands. His gaze shifted to Hannah with undisguised curiosity. "Gerald, meet Hannah Mitchell, my executive assistant and our foundation's program director," Ben introduced. "She's been instrumental in developing the partnership framework we're discussing tonight." Hannah noted the subtle emphasis Ben placed on her dual role, establishing her presence as more than administrative support. It was one of many ways he consistently validated her contributions in professional settings. The dinner progressed smoothly through appetizers and main courses, with discussion flowing easily between technical specifications and market strategy. Hannah contributed when appropriate, her insights on implementation timelines particularly well received. As dessert was served, Gerald turned to Hannah with unexpected directness. "So, Ms. Mitchell, Ben tells me you came to Vertex from rather unusual circumstances, something about rescuing him on the street." Hannah tensed, sensing the implied diminishment in his tone. Before she could respond, Ben interjected smoothly. "Hannah demonstrated exceptional judgment and compassion that morning, qualities she brings to every aspect of her work at Vertex. The company is fortunate that our paths crossed, however unconventionally." Gerald studied them both for a moment, then nodded. "Fortune favors the bold, they say. And speaking of fortune," he raised his glass, "to a partnership that will benefit us both substantially." The deal was effectively sealed. As they left the restaurant 2 hours later, Hannah felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The Westridge partnership would be transformative for Vertex, and she'd played a meaningful role in securing it. "That went better than expected," Ben remarked as they slid back into the town car. "Your suggestion about phased implementation addressed Gerald's main concern. He's worried about disrupting his existing systems," Hannah observed. "The phased approach gives his team time to adapt." Ben nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Your ability to read people is remarkable, Hannah. It's one of your greatest strengths." "Thank you," she said, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting in the dimly lit back seat. "I should probably review the foundation gala arrangements when we get back to the office." The event planner had questions about the seating chart. "It's nearly 10 p.m., Ben pointed out gently. "The seating chart can wait until morning. Let's get you home to Tyler." The car ride to Hannah's condo passed in comfortable silence. When they arrived, Ben insisted on walking her to the lobby, leaning only slightly on his cane. "Thank you for tonight," he said as they paused by the elevators. "Your contribution to the Westridge negotiation was invaluable." "Just doing my job," Hannah replied with a smile. Ben's expression grew serious. It's more than that, and we both know it. He hesitated, as if weighing his next words carefully. Hannah, there's something I've been meaning to discuss with you. The elevator doors opened, momentarily distracting them both. When Hannah looked back at Ben, something in his eyes made her pulse quicken. Yes? She prompted when he didn't continue. Ben shook his head slightly. Not here. Not now. It can wait until after the foundation launch. We should both focus on making that successful. Hannah nodded, though curiosity burned within her. Good night, Ben. Good night, Hannah. As she rode the elevator up to her floor, Hannah's mind raced with possibilities. Was he going to restructure her position, offer her a different role? The foundation launch was just 3 weeks away. Whatever Ben wanted to discuss, it clearly mattered enough to him to choose the right moment. The following week passed in a blur of foundation preparations. Hannah coordinated with caterers, finalized the guest list, reviewed her speaking notes, and managed Ben's increasingly packed schedule. They had little time for private conversation. Their interactions focused entirely on work. 2 days before the gala, Hannah was reviewing donor materials in Ben's office when Patricia knocked and entered, her expression troubled. Ben, Victoria Harrington is here to see you. Hannah saw Ben's posture stiffen almost imperceptibly. I don't have anything scheduled with Victoria. She says it's urgent, Patricia replied, her tone carefully neutral. Ben sighed. Send her in. As Patricia withdrew, he turned to Hannah. Victoria Harrington is your ex-wife, Hannah finished quietly. I remember from the background briefing when I started. What she didn't add was that she'd learned considerably more about Victoria Harrington Crawford in the months since. A prominent corporate attorney, famously ambitious, and rumored to have left the marriage when Ben refused to relocate to London for her career advancement. Before Ben could respond, the door opened and Victoria swept in. Tall, impeccably dressed, with sleek blonde hair and sharp features, she radiated confident authority. Benjamin, she greeted coolly, before her gaze settled on Hannah. I'd like to speak with you privately. Hannah is my executive assistant, Ben replied, his tone matching Victoria's in temperature. Anything you need to discuss with me can be said in her presence. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. Very well. I'm returning to New York permanently. Anderson & Mercer is opening a branch office here and they've offered me managing partnership. Congratulations, Ben said evenly. But I'm not sure why this required an unscheduled visit. Victoria's gaze flicked briefly to Hannah before returning to Ben. I thought we might reconsider our situation, given the change in circumstances. The reasons for our separation no longer apply. The implication hung in the air like a thundercloud. Hannah felt suddenly acutely out of place, witnessing a conversation far too personal for her professional role. I should give you privacy, she murmured, gathering her materials. That's not necessary, Ben said, but Hannah was already moving toward the door. I'll check on the catering arrangements for the gala, she said, avoiding eye contact with either of them. Patricia has my number if you need anything. Once in the safety of her own office, Hannah sat heavily in her chair, her heart pounding uncomfortably. The poised, beautiful Victoria was exactly the type of woman she would have pictured with Ben, sophisticated, accomplished, moving in the same elite circles. Against that image, Hannah felt hopelessly outclassed, despite her professional growth over recent months. More troubling was her emotional reaction. The sharp pang of jealousy that had struck her at Victoria's words confirmed what she'd been trying to deny. Her feelings for Ben had evolved far beyond professional admiration or friendship. She had fallen in love with her boss, a complication that could jeopardize everything she'd worked to achieve. Hannah managed to avoid Ben for the remainder of that day, burying herself in foundation preparations. She left the office early, claiming Tyler had a science project emergency, not entirely untrue, though his volcano model needed only minor adjustments. That evening, as Tyler slept, Hannah sat on her balcony with a glass of wine, confronting the reality of her situation. Her feelings for Ben had grown steadily over their months working together, nurtured by his kindness, intelligence, and the respect he showed her. But acting on those feelings risked everything: her job, her professional reputation, the foundation work that had become so important to her. And now Victoria had returned, clearly interested in reconciliation. Hannah had no illusion about competing with Ben's ex-wife, who shared his background, education, and social standing. Whatever Ben had wanted to discuss with her would likely be shelved now that Victoria was back in the picture. Adult problems, Hannah murmured to herself, echoing the phrase she often used when Tyler asked about matters beyond his understanding. The irony wasn't lost on her. For all her newfound professional confidence, she felt as helpless as a schoolgirl with her first crush. Her phone chimed with a text message. "Are you all right?" "You left abruptly." Ben Hannah stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Honesty wasn't an option, but neither was she comfortable with outright deception. Just needed to help Tyler with his science project, all set for the gala rehearsal tomorrow. His response came quickly. Victoria's visit was unexpected. Nothing to worry about. See you tomorrow. Nothing to worry about. The words echoed in Hannah's mind as she tried to interpret their meaning. Was he reassuring her professionally, or was there a deeper message? The next morning, Hannah arrived at the office early, determined to maintain absolute professionalism. The gala rehearsal was scheduled for noon at the Grand Meridian Hotel, where the actual event would take place tomorrow evening. As program director and a featured speaker, Hannah needed to walk through her presentation and coordinate with the audiovisual team. She was reviewing her notes in the hotel's ballroom when Ben arrived looking slightly harried. "Sorry I'm late," he said, setting down his briefcase. "The board meeting ran long." "No problem," Hannah replied, keeping her tone light. "The technical team is just setting up the projector for my presentation." Ben studied her for a moment. "Hannah, about yesterday." "We should focus on the rehearsal," she interrupted gently. "The foundation launch is too important to be distracted by other matters." A flicker of something, disappointment perhaps, crossed his face, but he nodded. "You're right, as usual. Let's get started." The rehearsal proceeded smoothly. Hannah's presentation on the Foundation's mission was compelling, interweaving statistics with personal anecdotes about her experiences as a single parent. When she finished, the small audience of staff and hotel personnel applauded warmly. "That was powerful," Ben said, approaching the podium as Hannah gathered her notes. "You're going to move people tomorrow night." "I hope so," she replied. "These programs could change lives." "They already have," Ben said quietly. "Mine included." Before Hannah could respond, Patricia called Ben over to discuss a seating arrangement issue, leaving Hannah to wonder at his words. That evening, Tyler bubbled with excitement about the gala. "Can I see your dress again, Mum?" Hannah retrieved the midnight blue gown from her closet, another gift from Ben, who had insisted the Foundation's director should look the part at the launch. The floor-length silk creation, with its subtle silver embellishments, was more elegant than anything she'd ever owned. "You're going to look like a princess," Tyler declared. "Is Mr. Ben going to be there?" "Of course," Hannah replied, carefully hanging the dress back up. "He's the founder." Tyler nodded sagely. "He likes you, you know." Hannah nearly dropped the hanger. "What makes you say that?" "The way he looks at you. Like Dad used to look at you in the old pictures before he left." Tyler's observation, delivered with childish directness, struck Hannah speechless. "Plus," he continued, oblivious to her reaction, "he told me. What? When?" "When he took me to the Science Museum while you were at that marketing meeting. He asked if I'd mind if he spent more time with you. I told him it was okay as long as he didn't make you cry like Dad did." Hannah sat heavily on the edge of her bed. "Tyler, what exactly did Ben say?" Tyler shrugged. "He said he cared about you a lot and wanted to know if I'd be okay with him taking you on a real date sometime. I told him you like Italian food and hate scary movies." Hannah felt lightheaded. Ben had discussed dating her with her son, weeks ago apparently, but had never broached the subject with her directly. Was this what he'd wanted to talk about the night Victoria returned? The next evening, as Hannah prepared for the gala, her thoughts remained tangled. Mrs. Patel fussed over Tyler, promising movies and popcorn, while Hannah applied the finishing touches to her makeup. The car service would arrive in 15 minutes to take her to the Grand Meridian. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Patel declared. "That boss of yours won't know what hit him." Hannah blushed. "It's not like that, Mrs. Patel." The older woman gave her a knowing look. "If you say so, dear." The hotel ballroom had been transformed for the gala. Soft lighting, elegant floral arrangements, and Vertex Foundation banners tastefully displayed. As program director, Hannah needed to arrive early to ensure everything was in place. The guests, corporate donors, community partners, and Vertex executives would begin arriving in an hour. She was checking the presentation setup one final time when she heard Ben's voice behind her. Hannah. She turned to find him standing in the ballroom entrance, impeccable in his tuxedo, his cane exchanged for a more formal walking stick with a silver handle. For a moment she couldn't speak, struck by how handsome he looked and the intensity of his gaze. "The room looks perfect," he said, approaching her. "As do you." "Thank you," she managed, smoothing her already smooth gown nervously. "Is Victoria attending tonight?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Ben's expression shifted to one of confusion. "Victoria? No, why would she?" Hannah hesitated. "I assumed, since she's back in town, that you might have reconciled." Understanding dawned on Ben's face. "Is that why you've been avoiding me?" He shook his head, a smile tugging at his lips. "Hannah, Victoria and I have been divorced for 3 years. Her return changes nothing." "But she said the reasons for your separation no longer apply," Hannah pointed out, her heart racing. "The reason for our separation was that we wanted different lives," Ben explained gently. "That hasn't changed. She's career-focused and has no interest in family life. I want—" He paused, taking a step closer. "I want something quite different." The air between them seemed to vibrate with possibility. Hannah was acutely aware of their solitude in the vast ballroom, the staff busy in other areas of the hotel, preparing for the evening. "What do you want, Ben?" she asked softly. "I think you know," he replied, his voice equally quiet. "I've wanted to talk to you about it for weeks, but the timing never seemed right. Then Victoria showed up, and you started avoiding me." Hannah took a deep breath. "Tyler told me you spoke with him about us." Ben looked momentarily abashed. "I should have talked to you first. That was presumptuous of me." "It was," Hannah agreed, "but also sweet." She met his gaze directly. "Ben, we work together. You're my boss." "The foundation is about to launch. There are 1,000 reasons why this is complicated." "I know," he acknowledged, "and if you tell me you're not interested, I'll never mention it again. We'll continue our professional relationship exactly as before." He took another step forward, close enough now that she could detect the subtle notes of his cologne. "But if there's any chance you might feel the same way I do, I think we owe it to ourselves to explore that." "And what way is that?" Hannah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben reached for her hand, holding it gently between both of his. "I'm falling in love with you, Hannah Mitchell. Not because you helped me when I was injured, though I'll always be grateful for that, but because of who you are, your intelligence, your kindness, your strength, the way you advocate for Tyler and others like him, the way you challenge me to be better." Hannah's breath caught in her throat. "Ben, The ballroom doors swung open as the catering staff arrived with trays of champagne flutes. Ben reluctantly released her hand, stepping back slightly as the workers efficiently arranged the glasses on nearby tables. "We should finish this conversation later," Hannah said, composing herself with effort. "The guests will be arriving soon." Ben nodded, though reluctance was evident in his expression. "Tonight, after the event? Dinner, just the two of us?" Hannah smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with nervousness. "I'd like that." The gala unfolded beautifully. Hannah's presentation received a standing ovation, moving several potential donors to increase their pledged contributions on the spot. The foundation was officially launched with twice the initial funding target secured, ensuring programs could begin immediately in multiple locations. Throughout the evening, Hannah was aware of Ben's gaze following her across the room as she networked with guests. Occasionally, their eyes would meet, and the silent communication between them sent thrills of anticipation through her. As the event wound down, Ben approached her near the coat check where she was thanking the hotel's event coordinator. "Ready for that dinner?" he asked when they were alone. "I've asked Marcus to bring the car around." "Just let me check on Tyler first," Hannah replied, pulling out her phone. Mrs. Patel answered on the second ring. "Everything is fine, dear. Tyler is sound asleep. Don't rush home. Enjoy your evening." There was a knowing tone in the older woman's voice that made Hannah blush. The restaurant Ben chose was small and intimate, tucked away on a quiet side street. The maitre d' led them to a private corner table, dimly lit by candles. "I've been wanting to bring you here for months," Ben admitted as they settled into their seats. "Their gnocchi is outstanding." "Is that why you asked Tyler about Italian food?" Hannah teased gently. Ben laughed. "Busted. I wanted to be prepared." As they enjoyed their late dinner, conversation flowed easily between them, touching on the gala's success, future foundation plans, and eventually more personal topics. Hannah found herself sharing stories about Tyler's early years, the challenges and joys of raising him alone after his father abandoned them when Tyler was just 3. "He's lucky to have you," Ben said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "You're an extraordinary mother." "What about you?" Hannah asked. "Did you and Victoria ever want children?" A shadow crossed Ben's face. "I did. She didn't. It became one of many incompatibilities we couldn't resolve." He hesitated, then added, "I've always wanted a family. The more traditional aspects of success, the company, the financial security, they mean little without someone to share them with." The vulnerability in his admission touched Hannah deeply. "And now?" she asked softly. "Now I've found someone who makes me believe it might still be possible," he replied, his gaze steady on hers. "If she's willing to take a chance on a workaholic with a recently healed ankle and absolutely no sense of direction in grocery stores." Hannah laughed. "That's oddly specific." "Patricia may have mentioned the grocery store incident from last Christmas party shopping," Ben admitted with a grin. As they finished their meal, the easy banter between them gradually shifted to something more serious, more charged with possibility. "Where do we go from here?" Hannah asked as Ben helped her into her coat. "Professionally, I mean, there will be talk." "There's already talk," Ben pointed out. "But I understand your concern. If you'd prefer, we could restructure your role to report directly to the board for foundation matters and to Patricia for administrative duties." Hannah nodded, touched by his thoughtfulness. "That might be best, at least initially. I don't want anyone questioning my contributions or your judgment." Outside the restaurant, snow had begun to fall lightly, dusting the sidewalk with delicate crystals. Marcus waited with the car, but Ben made no move toward it immediately. "I know this is complicated," he said, taking both her hands in his. "And we have a lot to figure out, but I want you to know I'm serious about this, about us. Whatever challenges come, we'll face them together." Hannah looked up at him, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. 6 months ago, she'd been a struggling single mother, desperate to keep a job that barely covered her bills. Now she stood on a snow-dusted sidewalk with a man who respected her mind, valued her work, adored her son, and somehow, improbably, loved her. "Together sounds perfect," she whispered, rising on tiptoes to press her lips gently to his. As Ben's arms enfolded her, deepening the kiss as snowflakes swirled around them, Hannah felt the final pieces of her new life clicking into place. The woman who had stopped to help an injured stranger that rainy morning could never have imagined where compassion would lead her, to professional fulfillment, financial security, and now to love with a man who saw her true worth. When they finally broke apart, Ben's eyes shone with happiness. "I should get you home to Tyler." "Yes," Hannah agreed, though she made no move to step away from his embrace. "But tomorrow maybe you could come over for dinner. Tyler's been wanting to show you his volcano project." "I'd like that very much," Ben replied, brushing a snowflake from her cheek with tender care. As they drove through the gently falling snow toward Hannah's condo, her hand clasped firmly in Ben's, Hannah reflected on the strange, wonderful journey that had brought her here. One act of kindness on a hectic morning had changed everything, not just for her and Tyler, but for countless families who would benefit from the foundation born from that chance encounter. Some might call it fate. Hannah preferred to think of it as proof that doing the right thing, even when difficult, could lead to possibilities beyond imagination. And as Ben's thumb traced gentle circles on her palm, she silently thanked the universe for that rainy morning, when being late to work had somehow led her exactly where she was meant to be.